honourable member for St. Anne, Parkland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's not often I get too excited. Well, I do get excited. I can't say that. But I really get excited about this one. And the member from Fish Creek, people know I'm not very huggy, and if it wasn't a COVID thing, I'd probably give you a big hug for this one. This is fantastic. So Gateway to the North, that's what we were known as for a number of years. A lot of folks have talked about flying. I'm actually a pilot. So there's this old joke, wait 2 minutes. If you don't know who the pilot in the room is, they'll announce it. I didn't even get to 2 minutes, Madam Speaker. And unfortunately, you didn't finish your flight training, but I would love to invite you out to one of 4 or 5 air training facilities that we have right within the greater regional Edmonton area. So 3 of which are sitting out in my airport out in Villeneuve, which has the 2nd largest air show in Canada next to Abbotsford. So as far as Springbank is great, ours is greater. Very happy to promote that. When we're talking about some of the industries that are taking place back and forth, we've talked about the big commercial ones, and folks seem to fixate on the large airports. But actually, there's tons of small ones. So as private pilots, we were COVID-proof. We've been flying around to your areas, popping into these different locations. And let me tell you what, I actually went on a trip a number of times with small aviation community out of Springbank, and we flew down to Florida. We went down there. We went down to Oshkosh. We've got people in our field, actually, Scott Holmes, as an example, is an actual aircraft racer in the CAFE division, flew over to China, took his plane over and actually competed in China. So as far as some of these communities and where we're at, I'm not sure if the member from Fish Creek has identified the amateur-built portion of it. So when you look at the amateur-built community, whether folks realize it or not, you kind of have the conventional ones, which are certified aircraft, and then there's all this other crazy stuff. So within the aviation community itself, both on the U.S. and the Canadian side, you're allowed to experiment. You're allowed to come up with new aeronautical designs. You're allowed to prove the mathematics on it. And this is where the most rapid advancement takes place. So coming back to Springbank Airport, there's custom aircrafters, a guy by the name of Ralph Inkster down there. He's phenomenal. He's kind of known as the RV aircraft guy. He actually built my first airplane. I went down there with him, hammered some rivets, did all that, learned all about aeronautics, the actual hands-on of building these. Ross Farnham from SDS Solutions, he actually builds the brain buckets that sit on top of the aircraft engines themselves and actually run it, so all the electronic fuel injection, everything else. Those things are distributed worldwide. There's a bunch of aircraft engineers down there that are actually reconstituting an Avro Aero. You know, the bird that went away back in the 50s and, you know, the one movie that Dan Aykroyd did, all that. They're actually reconstituting one that's going to fly. So there's tons of skill sets. Coming back to the air show, a guy by the name of Richard Skirma kind of spearheaded that. We've got Mayor Natu, who is spearheading the Villeneuve Landing Network, which I'm very proud to be part of. And we've got support both from the Edmonton International Airport, obviously, on that one. We're talking about logistics, tying everything in that regard. So obviously with the freight movement and trains, et cetera, and everything we have to offer. St. Albert's on board with it. City of Edmonton's on board with it. We've got 3 regional counties are on board with it. We're looking at investing and growing this. And out in that field, again, when I start looking at the differences of what we have to offer, Wichita comes to mind. So Wichita, Kansas, birthplace of Boeing, Cessna, Garmin. And I was talking to an aircraft maintenance engineer the other day who has to fly all over the place and actually work on these big jets, whether it was WestJet or whether it was Air Canada or whoever actually works on the big ones. He still works on the small ones. And that was launched, his whole aviation career was launched literally out of a small airport. Villeneuve again. I hate to keep mentioning it, but it's a really good one. And everything that he's done is literally international, worldwide. And he says the similarities that we could have, what we could have that we never take advantage of, we could be Wichita North. So when you think about all these aircraft that are parked right now, there would have been a golden opportunity to fly these 737s, drop them in here, do the teardowns, do the maintenance and everything else, take advantage of our disparity in the dollars in the marketplace, and then get these things reconstituted and back out. So if I look locally, when I went to go paint my aircraft, I had to fly out to Penticton to have it done because my local field didn't have the facilities for it. So it's kind of a hand-to-mouth thing because there hasn't been a regional focus. But then again, I look at success stories like Viking Aircraft. They buy up type certificates from these other aircraft, the Cessna Caravan, et cetera, and now they've got them. They're building these aircraft. Fantastic, homegrown, Alberta-made, Canadian-made solution, and we don't hear a thing from it. And even from my own colleagues, they're kind of wondering, you know, is this really required? Do we need another committee, another board? Yeah, unless you're actually from that community and you don't see it, you don't see all the potential. We've got companies like Graphene Leaders Canada. They could potentially apply their graphene technology to what we're doing here in aviation. There's tons of things that I keep finding as an MLA that I stumble upon that you connect these threads. When we're talking economic viability for small communities actually took possession of these airports for a number of years ago. And a member of the Canadian Organization of Pilots Associations, so I fly my own aircraft and I own one. I'm also part of these other organizations. The biggest thing that we have to sell all the time is to these communities that have them is they don't realize the golden gem that they have. There's lots of us, you know, whirly bird guys that want to go out for a flight, spend a couple $100s to go get a hamburger. There's no place to go. Like a lot of these little regional airports, they're sitting on gems. You would literally have people flocking in from all over the province and across Canada if you had decent fuel rates. If you gave a courtesy car there that somebody could just go grab the car and head over to the local cafe, you would have that. And there's the paradigm shift. When I'm flying across the States and I head into Wichita or Black Rock or any of these other ones, they literally roll out a red carpet. If there's not a commercial jet that's sitting there, they'll roll a red carpet, they'll offer you a courtesy car, they'll throw you, 4 or 5 different places, you go have a bite to eat, and people literally migrate towards those areas. When we're looking at other advancing technologies, Pegasus imagery. So here's guys that are sitting up at the Edmonton International Airport. We're trying to get them out into Villeneuve there again. They've seen a gap in the actual drone technology, so between what you have for military drones and what you have for the domestic drones. And what they're doing is finding a solution that comes up in between. So now you can take all this imagery, so from guys that have served for a number of years in the forces where they have the drones, they deploy them, they do all the good things. Now they're trying to put that and bring it back into our own market and advance that. When you've got companies that are actually developing the components that are sent over to Asia that are put together in the drones and are brought back to us, it seems like we should maybe short circuit that and start building these technologies here. I was very pleased to see that my kids are starting to learn about avionics in school, or aviation I should say. This is fantastic. You want to get kids hooked? Get them involved. You want the artificial intelligence dialogues, you want the programming dialogues, you want all those. Get them hooked on mathematics, get them hooked on these type of things. Give them a place to work, give them a place to dream. I was just that farm kid looking at those aircraft ripping overhead and never thought I'd get a chance to. And I did. Because that community is so welcoming. There might be people on Harley Davises that won't wave at a guy riding a Honda, but if you're in an airplane, regardless of whether you're flying the big iron or you're flying the small stuff, everybody is down to the basics. It's down to the basis of you fly. You know, and there's another saying out there, the second greatest thrill to man is flight, the first one is landing. So there's lots of skill that goes into piloting and learning about all the weather and all the characteristics there, and also fuel management and human factors and all those things. Fantastic. It teaches you that discipline. And there's another one too that says out there, there's no brave old pilots. So there's something with that. And when you start talking about that industry and how welcoming it is and where we can go with it, it literally opens up connections around the world. And again, one of the members had mentioned how logistically we're closer or would be on that great circle, similar to those trading routes where Alaska was in heyday, prior to the Soviet Union letting flights go over top of their territories at an undisclosed amount, which they still haven't said. But we're strategically poised, and we're so darn Canadian about it. We've lost the fact that this was the gateway to the north. We lost the fact that WAPME had opened up a ton of things, that we had connections and all these, Billy Bishop and a ton of other uncounted heroes that we forget about that had that community and that torch. To the sense that, yeah, we need to remember our roots. We need to know that we can. We need to think big again. And nothing like an aircraft flying overhead and seeing a child's eyes light up when they realize that they can do that. Even in so much as when we had the snowbirds taking a flying flight over Canada, and unfortunately with that tragic event out in British Columbia. But the fact that that uplifted so many people's spirits, because of whether you actually get to fly in the cockpit, whether you maintain those aircraft, whether you just actually enjoy them going by. It's something that we can be proud of. It's something that can bind us. It's something that lifts us out of what our problems are. And I'll tell you what, Madam Speaker, it's like sitting on God's doorstep when you're up there. I absolutely love going around and taking pictures of everyone's constituencies, dropping in at your airports and talking to the local folks there when I have my day off, because we have such a blessed province. And getting the industry to work together, to look at the things that we can actually build and diversify our economy. And aeronautics is a massive economy that we've kind of stumbled over for a number of years. These are the things that we can do better than most, and we're tripping up on it. I'm trying to look at my notes to see if I missed anything. I've mentioned a few folks, and what I'd like to say is that we need to do better. We can do better. We can support this industry when we take it serious. And with that focus, like we've done on the other pillars of our economy, this can be another major one that we can capitalize on. Again, taking advantage of our neighbors next door. Thank you.